Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back to a decade when frosted tips were a thing. The Backstreet Boys ruled the airwaves, and college bars were stickier than your high school cafeteria floor after a food fight. But instead of a carefree night out, you're about to relive something truly terrifying. The Roofie epidemic in 1990s college bars. That's right. This isn't a story about neon windbreakers and rollerblades. It's about the chilling rise of a little pill with a big reputation and a nightlife scene so chaotic, even your ex's MySpace page would feel organized by comparison. And since this is our brand new channel, before you settle in, maybe take a second to hit like and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what you find here. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from, and what time it is for you, and whether your college bar had a mechanical bull, a guy named Chad, or both. Maybe all three. Now, dim those lights, flip on a fan for that soft, nostalgic hum. Bonus points if it sounds like a busted dorm air conditioner, and get comfortable. This story isn't just about danger, but about absurdity, panic, and the weird social alchemy that made the 90s both the best and worst time to buy a drink from a stranger. Let's pause for a second. Ever wonder what really happened inside those crowded campus bars? Was there actually a shadowy figure in the corner with a trench coat? Or just a guy named Steve who failed freshman chem 3 times? How did college students defend themselves? Pepper spray, buddy systems, or just an unhealthy faith in Zima? Was the bathroom line longer than the list of banned cocktails? And in a world before group chats, how did anyone warn their friends about danger? Or did everyone just yell, "Watch your drink," across a DJ playing Smash Mouth? Congratulations, you've just woken up, slightly hungover, in 1996. Your hair smells like cigarettes, your shoes are stuck to the floor, and you're already dreading the price of well drinks. Good luck. Step inside. The lights are too bright, the floor is suspiciously sticky, and every other song is Wannabe by the Spice Girls. College bars in the 1990s are an ecosystem of bad IDs, worse fashion, and the faint smell of burnt mozzarella sticks. Before you even order your first drink, you're assaulted by the decor, Christmas lights year-round, and a wall of neon beer signs that scream fun, but whisper yeast infection. Let's talk atmosphere. The bar is technically Irish-themed, in the same way your roommate's fake accent is technically British. There's a cardboard Guinness cutout by the door, but the closest thing to real Irish culture is a menu item called potato skins and a bartender named Kyle, who once tried to convince you Jameson was invented by Mark Wahlberg. The seating is a mismatched jumble. Wobbly high-top tables, cracked vinyl booths, and the mysterious bar stool that nobody ever sits on twice, probably because it's still drying out from last night's incident. As you inch your way across the tile, if you can call this amalgamation of linoleum and regret tile, you're serenaded by the unmistakable sound of a DJ whose only 2 moods are Macarena and aggressively yelling over the speakers. On one side, there's a dance floor, which is just a patch of uncarpeted space between the dartboard and a jukebox that only plays TLC if you bang on it exactly right. If you're lucky, the fog machine is working. If not, the fog is just the ghost of spilled beer and 12 years of cigarette smoke that seeped into the ceiling tiles. The bouncer, whose real name you will never know, gives your group the up and down. He's wearing a shirt so tight it's become a second skin, and he checks your ID for approximately 2 seconds before waving you in. The entry stamp smells faintly of grape-scented marker and regret. Dress code? As long as you're not barefoot, you're good. Scrunchies, crop tops, flannel shirts tied around the waist, and jeans so baggy you could store a VHS tape in the pocket. It's a parade of fashion choices that make you grateful digital cameras aren't widespread yet. At the bar, you wait your turn behind a crowd of freshmen who are all convinced they look 23, despite wearing plastic Mardi Gras beads and the aura of nervous energy. Someone's trying to order a Cosmos because they saw it on Sex and the City. The bartender ignores this and pours 6 vodka crans using the same bottle of well vodka that's been there since spring break, 1993. You grip your solo cup like a life raft, eyeing it for any signs of foul play, or at the very least, a rogue fruit fly. The soundtrack never stops. If it's not the Spice Girls, it's tub thumping or No Scrubs. The speakers are blown out, and every song is punctuated by a shriek from the dance floor. Usually because someone's friend just arrived, or because they spotted their ex at the pool table, wearing a visor upside down. Conversation happens at a near shout, punctuated by fits of laughter and someone inevitably losing their voice by midnight. It's socializing, 90s style, loud, chaotic, and with a constant undertone of, is that my drink or yours? The bathrooms are their own adventure. The women's room is a confessional, gossip center, and emergency triage all at once. The men's is best described as moist. There's always a rumor that the hand dryer actually works, but nobody's seen it happen. The graffiti on the stall walls is a patchwork of phone numbers, declarations of love, and at least 3 warnings about Chad from Sigma Pi. Back out in the main bar, time works differently. Maybe it's the blacked out windows, maybe it's the discount tequila shots, but hours slip by in a blur of laughter, awkward flirting, and failed attempts at dancing. By the end of the night, you'll have witnessed at least 1 impromptu limbo contest and heard 3 versions of Livin' La Vida Loca. So welcome to the 90s college bar scene. Sticky, loud, and absolutely unforgettable. It's not just a place, it's a rite of passage, an olfactory assault, and a living, breathing artifact of a time when everyone was a little more reckless, a lot more caffeinated, and just happy to be out past midnight. You've heard the stories, friend of a friend, cousin of a roommate, everyone knows someone who almost got roofied. But what actually was a roofie? Where did these little pills come from? Is there a black market under the foosball table? Or did they just spawn in the wild, like mold on a bar lime? Let's start with the facts. Roofies, short for Rohypnol, were not invented by a cartoon villain cackling in a laboratory while swirling a martini. They were a real pharmaceutical-grade tranquilizer developed in the 1970s for legitimate reasons, mostly for helping people in Europe sleep through insomnia, dental work, or possibly a particularly bad Eurovision performance. In America, though, the only thing Rohypnol put to sleep was your ability to trust a free drink. The US government never approved it for use, which made it instantly cooler, scarier, and, according to every tabloid in 1997, basically the most dangerous thing since the satanic panic of Dungeons and Dragons. But in the 1990s college bar scene, information traveled faster than a Jaeger bomb at happy hour. Suddenly, rumors blossomed. Supposedly, every town had a shadowy character named Slick Rick, or Mysterious Steve who could hook you up with a pack of roofies, usually for reasons. These reasons were always left vague, but the implication was clear. This was the nuclear option of sketchy party behavior. The truth, of course, was a lot less cinematic. Most people wouldn't have known a real roofie if it floated in their Zima and introduced itself. But that didn't matter, because the legend was already bigger than reality. Why did these stories catch fire? Blame the media, blame the movies, or maybe just blame boredom. News reports, talk shows, and even campus newspapers started cranking out cautionary tales like they were running for Parent of the Year. The New York Times warned of date rape drugs turning American nightlife into a chemical war zone. TV shows jumped in too, with very special episodes that made everyone in your dorm stare suspiciously at their punch at the next party. You didn't have to know anyone who'd actually seen a roofie. All you needed was a friend whose cousin's roommate woke up in a Taco Bell parking lot with a vague sense of dread and a missing left shoe. The stories multiplied. There were tales of roofies turning up in remote college towns, big cities, and every Applebee's with a 2-for-1 drink special. There was the one about the girl who felt dizzy, went to the bathroom, and woke up 2 days later in the next county. And the story about the guy who accidentally took a roofie himself and missed his own birthday. Each retelling added more detail, more drama, and at least one unnecessary appearance by a biker gang. But where did these mysterious pills actually come from? The answer, mostly, they didn't. Getting your hands on real Rohypnol in 1990s, America was about as likely as finding a bar bathroom without a line. Actual cases of drink spiking with real pharmaceutical roofies were vanishingly rare. Most of the time, if someone felt weird after a drink, it was due to a combination of 6 kamikaze shots, sleep deprivation, and the unique pain of realizing you just danced to bop in public. And yet, the fear was real. It was the perfect storm of urban legend. Scientific enough to be scary, vague enough to be everywhere, and just plausible enough that your campus safety officer could host a 45-minute PowerPoint about it. Posters popped up on every bulletin board, and nervous parents started mailing newspaper clippings with headlines like, "Beware the nightmare in your solo cup." In the end, the legend of roofies was like all the best urban myths, part truth, mostly hype, sprinkled with just enough real danger to keep you checking your drink, eyeing that suspicious guy in the backwards hat, and wondering if maybe you should just stick to water. But this is the 90s. Even the water isn't safe. You elbow your way to the bar. Someone is waving a fake ID. Another is trying to flirt with the bartender by quoting Pulp Fiction. Meanwhile, you order the cheapest thing on the menu and guard it like it's the last slice of pizza at a frat party. Every drink is a test of trust and hand-eye coordination. There's no such thing as waiting in line in a 90s college bar. There's only the scrum. You wedge yourself between a guy in a no-fear shirt and a woman with butterfly clips who's doing calculus in her head to decide if she has enough quarters for both a rum and Coke and 1 round of Galaga. There's a very specific etiquette to getting served. Wave your hand like you're hailing a cab in the rain. Make aggressive but non-threatening eye contact with the bartender and hope you don't get steamrolled by the birthday group that just walked in wearing coordinated sashes. The music is so loud you can't hear yourself think, let alone hear what anyone else is ordering. The bartender reads lips, hand signals, and the occasional desperate mime act. If you're lucky, you get a nod and a "what'll it be?" If you're unlucky, you get ignored until you start to question if you've become a ghost, doomed to haunt this sticky countertop for eternity. When you finally shout your order, you have to repeat it twice, louder each time, while the guy behind you tries to trade a Backstreet Boys button for a tequila shot. The bar itself is a battlefield. There are the splash zones, mysterious puddles of liquid that are either spilled drinks, melted ice, or possibly the collected tears of people who've dropped a $10 bill on the floor and will never see it again. The napkins are always soggy. The straws are always bent, and the lemon wedges look like they've survived 3 separate global conflicts. You clutch your drink like it's precious cargo, because once it's in your hand, the real game begins. Drink defense. You stand in a hunched, ready stance, holding your cup over the rim like you're shielding a candle from the wind. There's always a moment of hesitation. Do you turn to say something to your friend? Or do you keep your eyes locked on your drink, trusting no one, not even the bartender? The paranoia is so thick you could slice it with the plastic cocktail sword sticking out of your watered-down screwdriver. Ordering shots is a group activity, mostly because no one trusts themselves to remember what they wanted by the time the bartender comes around again. Your crew huddles up, trying to coordinate an order, but half the group is on a mission to find someone's lost jacket, and the other half is inexplicably in the bathroom, again. The bravest among you shouts, 6 kamikazes and a pitcher of whatever's cheapest, as if it's a war cry. Even the act of paying is a production. Will your card work? Will the bartender judge you for handing over 5 crumpled singles and a handful of nickels? The tab is a mystery, like Schrodinger's cat. Until you see the receipt, your bank account is both alive and dead. Tips are either wildly generous or suspiciously exact change, depending on how much of your dignity you have left. And just when you think you've made it, drink in hand, receipt signed, friends located, someone bumps into you and the liquid sloshes dangerously close to the edge. You execute the classic protective hover, a maneuver that involves moving your drink in tight little circles, keeping it always within eyesight as if you're an amateur magician. You guard it against wandering hands, accidental elbows, and the existential threat posed by Chad, who's just done a body shot off the bar and is looking unsteady. So yes, ordering a drink in the 90s college bar scene wasn't just a transaction, it was a full contact sport. The prize? A lukewarm beverage, a fleeting sense of triumph, and the knowledge that, for one brief, shining moment, you conquered the chaos. At least until you have to order another. Cable news is on a rampage, local newspapers are running breathless headlines, and every campus is buzzing with rumor. Was it really happening everywhere? Or was it another case of the 90s media scaring your parents into banning you from ever leaving your dorm? This is the golden age of overreaction. Somewhere in a smoke-filled TV studio, a news anchor with frosted tips is gravely intoning, another terrifying threat to America's youth. Cut to shaky B-roll of a crowded bar, someone's hand hovering over a solo cup, and a still photo of an ominous little white pill zoomed in so close it looks like a meteor from a disaster movie. The scrolling ticker at the bottom says, "Are your kids safe? Roofie nightmare in suburbia." It's the kind of story that spreads like a campus cold. One segment on Dateline, and suddenly your mom is calling every night to ask, "Did you go out? Did you cover your drink? Have you been roofied? Should I call the dean?" Meanwhile, your dad is quietly Googling how to install security camera in dorm room without looking like a maniac. On campus, it's chaos. Flyers blossom overnight, stapled to every bulletin board, bathroom mirror, and even the back of the bathroom stall door. Watch your drink, trust no one, and for some reason, remember what happened to Lisa from Delta Phi. No one remembers Lisa from Delta Phi, but you're now absolutely certain she met a grim fate, possibly at the hands of someone in a backwards Kangol hat. Professors mention it before class. RAs lecture about it in the world's most awkward floor meetings, reading directly from a 3-year-old pamphlet that suggests bringing your own sealed beverage. if possible, which would be fine if you weren't attending the kind of party where the only sealed beverage is a suspicious Capri Sun floating in a tub of warm water. Campus security, not wanting to be left out, hosts awareness nights where you learn self-defense moves, none of which involve the actual bar environment, and receive a free keychain flashlight shaped like a bear. Every rumor is recycled and upgraded. The girl who blacked out and woke up in another state becomes the girl who disappeared for a week and returned with a mysterious tattoo. The guy who had a weird feeling and left his drink is now the guy who fought off 2 attackers with his sandal and a plastic fork. Each story comes with at least 3 friends who swear they know someone who knows someone. Meanwhile, the real roofie threat, always low but never zero, becomes part of a much larger narrative. The world is dangerous, your bar is dangerous, and your own friends are possibly also dangerous. You start to wonder if the bartender is watching you, or if he's just tired because he's been working doubles since St. Patrick's Day. The local paper runs a story with the subtle headline, "Our bars aren't safe," featuring a blurry photo of a drink and an interview with a bar owner who's just trying to sell mozzarella sticks, not defend his establishment from international intrigue. Talk radio hosts are beside themselves this week. Roofies. Next week, pogo sticks and Pokemon cards. By now, your aunt in Topeka has mailed you a printout from AOL about what to do if you suddenly feel sleepy at a party. Step 1, panic. Step 2, call your aunt. But the more you read, the less you actually know. Is it real? Is it hype? Are there really shadowy figures in every crowd, or just a lot of nervous undergrads clutching their drinks like precious family heirlooms? The answer, as always in the 90s, is a little bit of both. The fear is sticky and contagious, just like the bar floor, and it's not going away anytime soon. So you keep an eye on your drink, you memorize the nearest exits, and you start eyeing that Capri Sun with suspicion. Welcome to campus nightlife, where the scariest thing of all might just be your own imagination, and maybe, if you're unlucky, the next day's headlines. Every bar has one. He's not on payroll, but he knows the bouncers, owns 4 puka shell necklaces, and is inexplicably both respected and feared. Chad is either saving the day or making it infinitely worse, and you're never sure which until it's too late. Chad doesn't walk into a room. He occupies it. He moves like he's simultaneously DJing, directing traffic, and judging your life choices. His t-shirt is a manifesto, faded and slightly sticky, emblazoned with a band nobody remembers anymore. Probably because Chad decided it was cool in 1994. Around his neck, the necklaces rattle with the same rhythm as the bass line from whatever pop-punk track is playing. Chad's hair is a carefully sculpted disaster, somewhere between gel, sweat, and what might be actual dirt, and he wears sunglasses even when the lights are fluorescent. You suspect the sunglasses serve a tactical purpose. They hide the intensity of his stare, which can cut through a wall and make a grown man reconsider attending a college bar ever again. He has friends, but they exist more as props in his ongoing performance than actual people. You'll see Chad sidle up to a group, lean in too close, whisper a warning about watching your drink, then stroll away as if nothing happened. His influence is subtle but undeniable. Someone trips and spills a beer. Chad shakes his head and avertedly points at the perpetrator. Someone flirts too aggressively? Chad appears in your peripheral vision, nodding toward the door, and suddenly social etiquette has taken a turn for the terrifying. Chad doubles as the unofficial DJ, even when the actual DJ is clearly trying to do his job. If he feels the dance floor energy dipping below acceptable chaos, he'll stomp to the front, wave his hands, and somehow cue a mix that's equal parts nostalgic and mildly terrifying. That one kid who's dancing alone suddenly becomes a crowd favorite, not because of talent, but because Chad has deemed it so. He operates on intuition, or possibly caffeine, moving like a general surveying a battlefield. Except the battlefield is sticky, neon lit, and has at least 3 people crying in the corner because someone just stole their nachos. And yes, Chad has rules. They are arbitrary and unwritten, but they carry the weight of ancient law. No drink left unattended? That's the law of Chad. Step on the wrong floor tile? That's the curse of Chad. Attempt to use a glow stick from last semester? That's a violation. Break any of these rules, and you'll feel a pressure in your chest like someone just muted the bass while whispering, "We'll see." Despite his intimidating presence, Chad is paradoxically helpful. He can defuse a heated argument between frat brothers over the last pitcher of well vodka by simply nodding. He can retrieve someone's dropped phone from the sticky abyss behind the bar without even looking down. He's part mediator, part chaotic neutral, part questionable life coach. But don't mistake kindness for predictability. Chad is mercurial. Sometimes he helps you. Sometimes he indirectly trips you into someone else's spilled drink just to maintain the ecosystem balance. Chad's aura extends to rumor territory as well. Some swear he's pulled someone out of a bad situation without a word. Others claim he once looked at a guy and the guy left the bar immediately, crying. Chad's reputation is built on myth, hearsay, and a few incidents that may or may not have happened at different bars, in different towns, across different years. But that doesn't matter. In the 1990s, reputation is everything, and Chad's is untouchable. By the end of the night, Chad has left his fingerprints everywhere. He's orchestrated the flow of people, the rhythm of the dance floor, and the anxiety levels of everyone holding a drink. You never really know if you survived because of him or despite him, but you do know this. The legend of Chad is real. In a world of sticky floors, mysterious liquids, and questionable decisions, he is the axis around which college nightlife spins, both terrifying and strangely comforting. And when he finally disappears into the fog of cigarette smoke, neon light, and questionable karaoke, the bar seems emptier, quieter, less alive. Chad's presence is missed immediately, and by sunrise, the stories will circulate. Someone saw him stop a fight. Someone saw him dance with a stranger to a Spice Girls song. Someone insists he whispered advice that saved their GPA. Welcome to the weird, chaotic, and inexplicably safe world of Chad, the unofficial bouncer, maybe DJ, an undisputed monarch of the 1990s college bar. Suddenly, every bathroom mirror is plastered with posters. Don't accept drinks from strangers. Keep your eyes on your beverage. The message is everywhere. The actual implementation, on the other hand, is about as effective as a wet cocktail napkin in a rainstorm. It starts innocently enough. Someone in student government prints 200 flyers using clip art, Comic Sans, and fear. Next thing you know, your entire campus looks like a very concerned version of a Lisa Frank Trapper Keeper. The posters are hot pink, the warnings are bold, and the slogans are eerily cheerful. Watch your drink. It's your favorite accessory. If you leave it, lose it. Don't let a creep ruin your week. They rhyme. They all rhyme. Why must they all rhyme? Suddenly, the bathroom becomes an educational war zone. You can't check your mascara without being eye level with a drawing of a red Solo cup and a cartoon pill wearing sunglasses. There's a full instructional diagram explaining how to hover your hand protectively over your beverage, like a hawk guarding its young. Some bars even start offering little plastic lids, like your vodka cranberry is a Starbucks Frappuccino and not the last defense against chemical sabotage. Of course, implementation is a mess. You're holding a flimsy plastic cup, trying to dance, wave at friends, and look cool, all while hovering your hand 3 inches above your beverage like you're performing a seance. You develop a whole drink strategy, the cup clutch, the body block, the I'll just chug it and suffer later maneuver. None of them are good. Some of them lead directly to spill-related injuries. At one point, someone starts selling drink-safe covers, a stretchy piece of fabric you can place over your cup with a tiny hole for a straw. It looks like your drink is wearing a swim cap. They come in fun colors, they don't fit right, and after 2 minutes, someone's drunk friend accidentally wears one as a hat. Safety compromised. Then come the on-campus workshops. You're required to attend a Stay Aware seminar in a freezing lecture hall where someone from the student health office hands out whistles and explains that staying safe is as easy as 1, 2, 3. No one remembers what steps 2 and 3 are. Step 1 might have involved yogurt. You receive a keychain with the emergency number on it, which is nice until you realize you don't carry keys. You live in a dorm. Your whole room locks with a plastic card and hope. Bar staff get trained too, sort of. Your bartender has a sheet taped to the inside of the beer cooler titled, "How to Spot a Predator," but halfway through your night, he's slammed, sweaty, and pouring 6 kamikaze shots for a bachelorette party that won't stop screaming. Wow! He might care, but he also might just be trying to survive until last call. And then there's the contradiction. You're supposed to be constantly alert while also letting loose. You're told, have fun, but not too much fun. Be chill, but hypervigilant. Enjoy yourself, but like in a paranoid way. It's a delicate dance, like trying to moonwalk on a minefield. You don't know whether to sip your drink or interrogate it. The messaging spreads fast and wide, from bathroom stalls to student handbooks to the back of every lecture hall chair. But no one's totally sure what to do when you actually do see someone walk away from their drink. Do you guard it? Throw it out? Form a human circle around it like it's the last supply drop in an apocalyptic video game? And yet, despite the awkwardness, the campaign works in its own weird way. People start looking out for each other. A girl leans over to remind you to cover your drink. A guy stops someone from taking the wrong cup. There's a shift in the collective consciousness. Not perfect, not polished, but something. Because in the end, the watch your drink campaign wasn't about solving the problem. It was about admitting that there was one. That someone, somewhere, might just try something. And that maybe, just maybe, if you watched out for each other, you'd make it through the night. Slightly buzzed, slightly sticky, but safe. You probably failed chemistry, but now's your chance to shine. Roofies, officially Rohypnol, weren't designed to ruin your night. They were tranquilizers, and not the fun kind. Let's talk pharmacology, half remembered from a pamphlet you never read. So here's the science, delivered gently so you don't have to sit upright to process it. Rohypnol, also known as flunitrazepam, is a benzodiazepine, a class of drugs that includes things like Valium and Xanax, except stronger, sneakier, and banned in the US by the late 90s. Originally developed to treat severe insomnia in places like Europe and South America, it was meant to knock you out in a peaceful, dream-filled kind of way. But somewhere along the way, someone thought, what if we use this to ruin everyone's trust in nightlife forever? In small doses, Rohypnol acts as a muscle relaxant, sedative, and amnesia inducer. In large doses, it's basically a hard reboot for your nervous system. You'll lose coordination, speech, and the ability to form short-term memories, sort of like trying to walk home after 4 Long Island iced teas, except involuntary and horrifying. Now, in theory, Rohypnol was a prescription medication, highly controlled, not sold over the counter, and regulated in most countries. So, how did it end up in rumors, urban legends, and the occasional actual drink? Importation. Specifically the sketchy kind. Some people ordered it from overseas. Others allegedly got it from friends of friends who knew a guy. It became the snake oil of the party scene, rare, powerful, and spoken about in hushed tones over bad nachos. The pill itself was tiny, usually greenish or white, and almost flavorless when crushed. At first, this made it disturbingly easy to hide in drinks, which led to an international freakout of epic proportions. As public concern grew, manufacturers added a blue dye to the tablet to tint drinks when dissolved, kind of like a chemical gotcha. But since people rarely drink clear beverages in college bars, this innovation mostly went unnoticed beneath the murky waters of cranberry juice, sour mix, and whatever was in the bottom of the jungle juice bucket. Side effects of Rohypnol included drowsiness, confusion, dizziness, loss of inhibition, slurred speech, and memory blackouts. Basically the symptoms of your average Thursday night, but with none of the consent. Victims often wouldn't remember anything, even if something had happened, and that was the terrifying part. The drug didn't just make you tired, it erased the tape. But here's the twist. While the drug was infamous, actual confirmed cases of it being used in U.S. college bars were relatively rare. The panic was real, but the pills? Not so much. Most so-called roofie incidents were actually cases of alcohol poisoning, dehydration, or the consequences of mixing drinks like a toddler. Pick cereal. Random, reckless, and regrettable. Still, that didn't stop the legend from growing teeth. Even if no pill was involved, people felt something strange, something wrong. And when your friend says, "I swear I only had 2 drinks," you believe them. You don't need a lab test to know something wasn't right. The science is only half the story. The fear, the experience, the community whisper network, that's where the real chemistry happened. For every confirmed case, there were 10 more whispered about, with just enough detail to make you wonder. And that uncertainty was the fuel, the what-ifs, the almosts, the eerie feeling that something's wrong, but you'll never prove it. Rohypnol became more than a drug. It became a cultural ghost story, a chemical boogeyman hiding in your margarita. So, no, you didn't pass chemistry, but you learned just enough to understand that one little pill, just 5 milligrams of regret, was enough to change how an entire generation looked at their drinks, their nights out, and sometimes even their friends. Welcome to the science of the 90s, half fact, half fear, and 100% sobering. Welcome to the keg jungle. Here, safety in numbers means 18 people crammed into a bathroom, and trust is measured by how long you've known someone on AOL Instant Messenger. Every party is a logistical nightmare of cups, kegs, and questionable intentions. You've arrived at a frat house. The air smells like mildew, testosterone, and cherry-flavored body spray. The music is so loud it physically rearranges your organs, and there are at least 3 shirtless guys doing that awkward shoulder bounce in a makeshift dance circle. Someone yells, "Bro," every 6.4 seconds. You're not sure if it's a greeting, a warning, or a mating call. The floor is sticky, always sticky. It doesn't matter if it's a Friday or a Tuesday or a random themed party called Rubik's Cube Rave. The floor exists in a permanent state of wet. You glance down at your shoes and silently say goodbye to them. They're not coming out of this unscathed. You're handed a red plastic cup. It's a rite of passage, a sacred vessel, and a constant source of paranoia. You don't know what's in it. Nobody knows what's in it. The guy pouring it doesn't know what's in it. It's from a keg labeled jungle juice, which somehow tastes like fruit punch and window cleaner, with a hint of broken dreams. You take a sip, immediate regret. But you don't toss it, you cling to it, because carrying a drink means you're busy. It means you're doing something. And most importantly, it means you can keep track of this cup. Because if you put it down and pick up a different one, you've entered the roulette wheel of doom. Hence the buddy system, which is less about loyalty and more about survival. You're assigned a friend like you're going on a field trip. Don't lose them. Don't let them wander off with that guy from econ who swears he's in a band, but somehow still doesn't own a shirt. If your buddy goes to the bathroom, you wait. If they get distracted, you form a defensive perimeter. You're not just friends anymore, you're a 2-person security detail. In theory, there are rules. In practice, there are vibes. One girl is holding 2 cups, one for herself and one for her friend, who's currently arguing with a lampshade. A guy is drinking out of a gallon jug of blue liquid and telling everyone it's homemade Gatorade. You retreat to the bathroom to escape the chaos, but find 12 people already in there, including someone crying, someone giving relationship advice, and someone fixing their eyeliner with surgical precision. Eventually, someone shouts, "Trust fall," and a crowd gathers. No one knows who started it. No one knows who's falling. But everyone chants anyway. You participate because peer pressure is strong, and frankly, there's no better metaphor for the evening than willingly collapsing into a group of strangers, holding solo cups and good intentions. Meanwhile, the keg runs out, and panic ensues. A frat brother disappears for 45 minutes and returns with a second keg that's somehow heavier and warmer than the first. No one questions it. You refill your cup, give it a sniff, and convince yourself it's fine because you saw it get poured. That's your only safety protocol, eyewitness beverage tracking. As the night progresses, the party gets hazier. The music switches from high-energy pop to someone's deep cuts playlist that includes way too much Dave Matthews Band. People start slurring goodbyes, hugging people they met 20 minutes ago, and losing their shoes. Somewhere, someone passes out in the coat room, which is also where the leftover pizzas are stored, and now smells like pepperoni and despair. You leave with your buddy, your cup still half full, and a vague sense that you either survived something or missed something, possibly both. The frat house looms behind you like a fever dream, loud, chaotic, unregulated, and somehow still standing. Because in the 90s, a frat party wasn't just a party. It was a gauntlet, a psychological experiment with bass-boosted music, suspicious beverages, and a general lack of adult supervision. And if you made it out with your cup, your friend, and your dignity mostly intact, you didn't just party, you won. Your friends swear by it. Never go to the bathroom alone. Never leave anyone behind. But after 2 Jaeger bombs and 3 rounds of Bohemian Rhapsody, Keeping track of your crew is like herding cats in crop tops. The buddy system starts as a noble idea. It's the battle plan drafted in your dorm room while applying glitter and debating how cold is too cold for bare legs. You agree to stick together. No solo bathroom trips. No leaving with strangers. No going outside to talk to that one guy from psych class who looks like he owns multiple snakes. Everyone nods solemnly. This is the pact. This is law. But 5 minutes into the party, it all falls apart. Jessica disappears into a mosh pit that has spontaneously formed around the jukebox. Kayla swears she'll be right back and then vanishes for 40 minutes, returning with a lollipop and a temporary tattoo of a flamingo. And you're trying to maintain line of sight while holding 2 drinks, your purse, and a third friend who's convinced that someone in the corner is a time traveler. No one's where they're supposed to be, but everyone's texting. "Where are you?" at the same time. The group chat is blowing up with location pings that are useless indoors. Messages range from "I'm by the couch" to "in the back" to "near the guy in the hat." There are 8 guys in hats, none of them helpful. Meanwhile, you're trapped in a human traffic jam between the coat rack and the bathroom, texting furiously while dodging a couple fighting about whether or not he danced too closely to a girl named Brittany. He did. Brittany is still nearby. Everyone is aware. When you do find a buddy, you clutch each other like you just survived a shipwreck. You immediately escort each other to the bathroom, not because you need to go, but because it's neutral ground. Bathroom trips become strategic, an escape from the chaos, a place to regroup, rehydrate, and talk loudly about which drinks are feeling weird and which boys are sketchy, but maybe not in a bad way. The line for the women's bathroom becomes the de facto war room of the buddy system. You see alliances form, secrets shared, and emotional breakdowns soothed with stolen paper towels and eyeliner. Of course, not all buddies are created equal. Some are militant, clipboard energy, enforcing curfews and hydration schedules. Others are chaos incarnate. These are the friends who disappear mid-conversation, return wearing someone else's jacket, and casually mention they may have kissed a guy named Chad. These are the same buddies who, despite all rules, always want to go outside and smoke with someone they just met named Sketchy Josh. You, meanwhile, become the human GPS. You are not drinking anymore, you are searching. You are navigating the bar like Indiana Jones in platforms. Your reward? Finding your missing friend in the corner, taking selfies with someone's mom. She wasn't even invited to the party. She just wandered in and started offering life advice. By the end of the night, the buddy system has morphed into something more spiritual than practical. You're not actually together, but you're together. In some transcendent college party quantum entanglement way, you are all watching each other's backs. Even if one of you is crying in the kitchen, one is outside trying to order an Uber on a phone with 2% battery, and one is making a speech about gender roles on top of a keg. In the harsh fluorescent glow of the 2 a.m. food truck line, you regroup. You count heads. You swap stories. Everyone's shoes are wet. No one remembers why. But you're safe, you're whole, and you're ordering curly fries like you just returned from war. So, does the buddy system work? Kind of. It's not foolproof, and it definitely ruins your ability to ghost a party gracefully. But it also keeps you tethered, emotionally, physically, and sometimes by hand-holding, through the chaos of the 90s bar scene. It's a little dysfunctional, a little frantic, and sometimes the only reason you make it home with your dignity is because someone grabbed your arm and said, "No, no, we're leaving." That's friendship. That's survival. That's the buddy system. The bouncer stares at your license for exactly 2 seconds before letting you in. You're not sure if you should feel flattered or terrified. Dress code? It's the 90s. Anything goes, as long as you don't look like you might actually be 21. Let's be clear. The bouncers of the 1990s weren't here to enforce rules. They were here to project vibes. Their main job was to stand still, look annoyed, and occasionally squint at a laminated piece of plastic held together with Scotch tape and confidence. If your ID said you were born in 1973, but your glitter eyeshadow screamed geometry homework, they'd pause, grunt, then gesture you through like they were opening the gates of Valhalla to someone who probably still lived in a dorm. The ID check was more theater than security. The line outside wrapped around the block, filled with people adjusting their outfits, rehearsing fake birthdays, and praying the bouncer didn't ask a follow-up question. You practiced in the mirror all week. April 14, 1975. Taurus, loves dogs. You memorized your fake address down to the zip code. But when the moment came, it didn't matter. The bouncer gave it a 2-second glance, nodded without making eye contact, and stamped your hand with a faded club logo shaped like a blob that might have once been a dolphin. But if the ID check was a formality, the dress code was a psychological experiment. Technically, it existed. Practically, it was like trying to define what counts as soup. There were rules: no hats, no athletic wear, no open-toe shoes, but these were enforced with the same consistency as a dorm vending machine. One person wearing Adidas tearaway pants gets denied. The next person walks in wearing literal pajamas and a tiara. In the 90s, dressing for a night out was less about fashion and more about survival. You needed clothes that could handle dancing, sweating, sitting on a bar stool with exposed screws, and navigating a bathroom that hadn't been cleaned since the Reagan administration. If you wore heels, you brought backup sneakers. If you wore jeans, they were baggy enough to hold your wallet, your keys, your friend's keys, and, somehow, a slice of pizza later in the night. There were signature looks, of course. Guys wore oversized polos, chain wallets, and enough cologne to incapacitate a small animal. Girls rocked spaghetti straps, platform sandals, and the ever-iconic going-out pants, mysteriously shiny, questionably flammable, and utterly essential. The goal was to look cool without appearing to try too hard, which meant trying way too hard and pretending not to notice when your top kept falling down. And then there were the gatekeepers, the bouncers who took their jobs a little too seriously. You'd be halfway to the front when one would squint at your shoes and say, "We're not letting people in with sneakers tonight." You look down. They're black boots. You gesture. He shrugs. "Not tonight." You watch as the next 3 people enter wearing foam flip-flops and literal clown shoes. You question reality. You question footwear. You go to CVS to buy a new pair of shoes just to re-enter. The bouncer lets you in. You're now poorer, angrier, and slightly more powerful. Inside, the dress code evaporates. It's a swirling kaleidoscope of halter tops, cargo pants, velvet chokers, tube tops, pleather jackets, and hair that has clearly been sculpted by wind, sweat, and Aquanet. The lighting is low enough that everything looks better than it is. The outfits that felt bold and fashion-forward in your dorm mirror now look like you're attending a costume party with no theme and too much glitter. But out there, at the velvet rope, or more likely, a chain strung between 2 traffic cones, The gatekeepers still stand. They are the sentinels of chaos, the semi-bored guardians of questionable legality, and the final obstacle between you and a night of $1 kamikazes and potential emotional instability. So next time you breeze past a modern bouncer with a barcode scanner, remember, once upon a time, entry to nightlife was decided by a man named Big Tony, who wore fingerless gloves and decided your fate based on vibes, shoe color, and whether you smiled just the right amount. Forget the bar if you want the inside scoop. Head to the women's bathroom. Here, alliances are forged, life stories are exchanged, and at least 3 people are crying. The real emergency protocols are drafted in front of the mirror, between mascara fixes. You stumble past the sticky floor tiles and over a discarded feather boa, duck through a creaky door that doesn't quite lock, and enter a realm that exists entirely separate from the chaos outside. The women's bathroom in a 1990s college bar is not just a bathroom. It's a command center, a confessional, a therapy lounge, a fashion triage unit, and sometimes a temporary shelter. The lighting is always dim and vaguely yellow. The music is muffled, and the scent is a heady cocktail of citrus cleaner, hairspray, and other people's anxiety. The mirror is the epicenter. It's cracked, it's smudged. Someone's written, "You are beautiful. Don't text him in pink lip gloss," on the top corner. In front of it stands a rotating cast of women performing synchronized survival rituals, blotting, adjusting, reapplying, and venting. One girl is expertly lining her lips while offering unsolicited but surprisingly solid life advice to a complete stranger in a crop top who just found out her ex is here with someone new. Another is holding a cup, not drinking it, just holding it like a prop in a Greek tragedy. She's been guarding it all night, and now she's reevaluating her entire life while someone braids her hair. A third girl, shaking slightly, explains that she just felt weird after 2 sips of her drink, and within seconds, a team assembles. They ask what she drank, who gave it to her, where she left it. Someone produces a bottle of water. Someone else starts digging in her tiny purse for crackers. One girl offers to walk her home. Another offers to fight the guy. They don't even know each other's last names. This is where safety happens, organically and chaotically. Not because of posters or campaigns, but because drunk women in bathrooms take care of each other with the energy of battle medics and the precision of NASA engineers. You'll hear phrases like, "No, we're leaving together. Don't go back out there without me. Give me his name and description in case we need to burn this place down." Plans are made in seconds. If one person's vibe is off, the mission changes. Someone sends a coded text, Operation Gumdrop is a go, and the whole group mobilizes. A girl in 6-inch heels who can barely walk suddenly becomes the designated sober strategist. Her heels do not affect her authority. Meanwhile, the line for the stalls is impossibly long. Some of it is for the toilet. Most of it is because nobody actually wants to leave. Inside the stalls, you'll hear everything from whispered pep talks to someone trying to remember the second verse of No Scrubs. Toilet paper is both a luxury and a form of currency. Tampons are traded like prison contraband. Every woman has at least one story about saving someone else or being saved. The sink counter is a bizarre buffet of forgotten items. 1 high heel, 3 press-on nails, a phone with a cracked screen, a bag of Skittles, and an unopened condom that may have come from the bar's safety basket by the door. Nobody knows who left these. Nobody touches them. They are now part of the ecosystem. And as for the crying, It's constant and weirdly soothing. Someone cries because her crush left with someone else. Someone else cries because someone looked at her weird. Another girl is crying happy tears because a stranger said she reminded her of a young Winona Ryder. They all hug. None of them are sober. All of them feel seen. Eventually, one by one, they step back into the fray. Mascara refreshed, plan in place, arms linked like soldiers entering the fog of war. They are ready. The bathroom has done its job. Because while the bar might be where the chaos is, the bathroom, that's where the real strategy lives. That's where you get rebuilt, recalibrated, and reminded that even in the scariest moments, there's a strange and beautiful safety in shared lip gloss, borrowed confidence, and one girl whispering, "You're not going back out there alone. Not tonight. Every campus has its own statistics." But what was actually happening? Was every drink laced with doom, or did anxiety outpace actual danger? The answer is complicated and very, very 1990s. This was the era of contradictions, a time when America's youth were being told to just say no, while also being handed flavored Zimas and invitations to foam parties. Panic and partying coexisted in a delicate, vodka cranberry-scented balance. On one hand, posters screamed, "Don't let your drink out of your sight." On the other, the guy serving you that drink had frosted tips and was actively quoting Limp Bizkit. You felt like you were supposed to be constantly in danger, but also, chill about it. Campus safety offices were stuck in the same paradox. They hosted serious seminars with names like chemical awareness in social settings, but the presentations were delivered via overhead projector and often included outdated information pulled from Xeroxed DEA bulletins that read "Choose Your Own Adventure" books. Someone always raised their hand to ask, "But has this actually happened here?" And the answer was always vague. Because here's the truth. While confirmed cases of drink spiking with drugs like Rohypnol did happen, they were statistically rare, not non-existent, just not the epidemic that media and rumor had made them out to be. According to law enforcement data from the late 90s, reports of drink tampering were increasing, but solid evidence, like lab-confirmed toxicology results, was difficult to come by. Many incidents lacked follow-up testing, and even when testing was done, alcohol was usually the main culprit. That didn't mean the fear was irrational. Far from it. The threat was real enough to change behavior on a massive scale. People stopped accepting open drinks from strangers. Women started ordering bottled beers just to keep a lid on things, literally. Plastic lids, sippy cup-style drink toppers, and tiny swizzle sticks became survival gear. Trust was rationed out in careful doses, and even close friends were scrutinized like TSA agents at a rave. Urban legends didn't help. If someone's friend's cousin once blacked out at a party in 1994, the story spread faster than mono in a freshman dorm. Suddenly, every girl who threw up in the bushes was probably drugged. Every guy who disappeared for 2 hours was maybe a victim of drink tampering. Every hangover became suspect. Even if someone had 11 drinks and no dinner, the phrase, "I think I got roofied," became shorthand for any night that ended in mystery and regret. What made things worse and weirder was the media frenzy. Daytime talk shows were obsessed. Local news ran grainy surveillance footage with dramatic narration. This young woman thought she was safe until she wasn't. Entire episodes of Law and Order were written based on rumors overheard in campus bathrooms. A single incident could make national headlines, while hundreds of safer nights never made a blip. So yes, the danger was real, but so was the confusion. Add in inconsistent police responses, a lack of awareness among medical staff, and the fact that many victims couldn't remember what happened to them, and you had a perfect storm of fear, doubt, and half-facts. People were scared, but didn't know what exactly to be scared of. The conversation was murky, laced with genuine concern and just enough misinformation to make things worse. But if the panic was louder than the reality, that didn't mean people overreacted. In fact, many argue it was the overreaction that helped. The heightened awareness led to changes in behavior, more support for victims, and an eventual push for legal and pharmaceutical reform. Rohypnol, for example, was pulled from legal circulation in many countries, and conversations about consent, safety, and drinking culture slowly started to evolve, even if no one knew what a consent workshop was yet. So, the answer to, was it really that bad, is kind of. It wasn't nothing, but it wasn't the apocalypse. The 90s had a way of turning every social issue into a moral panic wrapped in denim and surrounded by laser lights. But if it got people to look out for each other, even if just for one night, maybe the fear wasn't completely wasted. After all, in a world of uncertainty, some caution might just be the most rational thing you can carry right next to your fake ID and your lip gloss. Suddenly, every flat surface in the bar has a warning sticker. The bartender has a speech memorized. Management is considering selling only sealed Capri Suns. The 90s are a nightmare if you hate adhesive residue. It started innocently enough, just one sign. A single laminated poster above the urinal warning patrons to watch your drink. Don't let your night go dark. Sensible, respectable. But like everything in the 90s, it escalated quickly. One poster turned into 27. By the time you ordered your second drink, you'd seen the same message repeated so many times you started to feel like you were in a low-budget PSA with a bar tab. Bar owners, terrified of liability and/or bad press, went all in on visibility. Every tabletop, wall, mirror, and napkin dispenser had a sticker, flyer, or handwritten message shouting some version of "keep your eyes on your drink." There were glow-in-the-dark versions, scratch-and-sniff ones. Why? Some bars even tried to integrate the warning into the decor, like a drink-safe neon sign that blinked between "you're fine" and "you're not." At one point, someone thought it would be helpful to put laminated cards inside the plastic menu sleeves. You know, next to the mozzarella sticks and dollar Jell-O shots. Because nothing says lighthearted fun like flipping past a menu insert titled, "If you suspect you've been drugged." Even the drink coasters got involved. One side said cheers. The other side said, "Don't trust Chad." It wasn't clear if this referred to a specific Chad or the concept of Chadness as a whole, but the message was received. The bartenders had scripts now. You'd order a rum and Coke and get a side of rehearsed caution. Make sure you don't leave your drink unattended. If anything seems off, come straight to me or the bouncer. Also, happy hour ends at Eaton. Their delivery was flat, like a flight attendant pointing to invisible exits, but the tone carried weight. You'd nod solemnly, take your drink, and then immediately wonder if the lemon wedge had been tampered with. Behind the scenes, bar managers were panicking. Rumors swirled. One place banned all pitchers, claiming shared drinks made it too easy for nefarious activity. Another replaced their shot specials with tiny boxed juices and encouraged patrons to BYOB, bring your own beverage. Capri Suns began to appear, ironically at first, then seriously. There's nothing more surreal than a group of frat boys brooding in a corner booth, sipping on tropical punch through tiny straws while DMX blasts in the background. Bar security also got weirder. Bouncers weren't just checking IDs anymore. They were trained to watch for unusual drink activity. What that meant was anyone pouring anything into anything got a side eye, and sometimes a full interrogation. One guy tried to top off his girlfriend's vodka soda with more vodka from his flask and ended up in a full 20-minute Q&A with a bouncer named Brick. Some establishments installed drink testing kits in the bathrooms, tiny strips of paper you could dip in your cup to detect common tampering substances. They mostly didn't work, and nobody really trusted them, but it made for a great icebreaker. "Hey, want to test our drinks together?" became the flirtiest sentence you could say in 1998. Meanwhile, staff meetings were descending into madness. Managers debated how many signs were too many. Could you put a warning on the inside of the toilet seat? Should every drink come with a waiver? Could they require customers to wear matching wristbands with emergency phone numbers, like drunk summer campers? And yet, people kept coming. The signs got faded, the stickers peeled, but the parties went on. Because under all the warnings, most patrons wanted to be safe. They just also wanted to dance, drink, and maybe make a few questionable decisions that didn't involve international pharmaceuticals, so bar owners kept adapting. They were part therapist, part traffic cop, part marketing guru. Their job wasn't just to serve drinks anymore, it was to maintain a fragile illusion that despite the paranoia, despite the chaos, everyone would make it home okay. Even if that meant another poster. Even if it meant sacrificing aesthetics for laminated warnings. Even if, yes, every available surface was sticky and moralizing. Because in the 90s, bar safety was no longer a policy, it was a decor theme. And if you didn't like it, well, there's a Capri Sun with your name on it. Soundtrack. A much more serious conversation is struggling to get heard, one awkward poster at a time. Welcome to the 90s, a time when entire generations were navigating consent using a mix of instinct, misinformation, and very bad after-school specials. The word consent didn't appear in syllabi, rarely showed up at orientation, and was often relegated to hastily made pamphlets that looked like they were designed by someone with access to clip art, MS Paint, and a mild head injury. If you were lucky, you got a 30-minute presentation during Welcome Week, wedged between fire safety in the dorms and how to do laundry without exploding a sock. The conversation around date rape in the 1990s wasn't absent, but it was muffled, halting, and so loaded with discomfort that it mostly lived in whispers. You'd hear about it in the way someone said, "She had a bad night," or "Something happened at that party." The language was vague, the implications heavy. Everyone knew someone, but no one knew what to do about it. Colleges tiptoed. Official statements came in the form of posters that read like rejected fortune cookie messages. No means no, next to a cartoon stop sign. Or the classic, "Don't let a night turn into a nightmare" over a silhouette of a woman alone at a party, looking like she had wandered into a horror movie. The materials were well-intentioned, but often confusing, less a guide to healthy boundaries, and more a warning that, apparently, consent was a mystical force you had to divine like a weather forecast. Students were left to navigate a world where sex, alcohol, and social pressure collided like three drunk cyclists on a frozen sidewalk. Consent was rarely discussed directly, and when it was usually framed in legal terms. This is what can get you expelled. It was a threat, not a conversation, a checkbox, a formality, definitely not the mutual, enthusiastic, continuous thing we now, finally teach it to be. And alcohol blurred everything. If two people were drinking, was it consensual? What if one was sober and the other wasn't? What if someone said yes, but clearly couldn't stand up? These weren't easy questions. And in most social circles, they weren't questions at all. They were just accepted gray areas no one wanted to poke too hard. The cultural script was messy, and everyone was working off a different draft. To make things worse, when survivors did speak up, the reaction was often skepticism, confusion, or flat-out blame. People asked what you drank, what you wore, how well you knew the person, not what they did, not if you were okay. Campus resources were inconsistent. Some schools had survivor advocates, others handed you a number to call during business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Rape office hours. It wasn't all hopeless. Grassroots movements were growing. Women's centers organized Take Back the Night marches. Student groups started holding consent is sexy workshops with actual, useful content. The early internet, barely functional and painfully slow, began to host survivor forums, zines, and resources. Tiny cracks were forming in the culture, and through them, something more honest started to grow. Still, for most students, the system remained frustratingly opaque. You were told to be careful, to look out for each other, to carry your keys between your fingers like tiny daggers. But no one told you how to have an actual conversation about boundaries, or how to hear no without taking it personally, or how to spot coercion dressed up as flirtation. So, yeah, it was taboo, but the silence was never neutral. It shaped how people acted, how they blamed, how they processed things that didn't even have names yet. And in that silence, harm happened. Often, quietly. Behind the music, under the flashing lights, next to the punch bowl. Because while the bar was loud, the most important conversations were the ones no one knew how to start. Not yet. Not then. But the need was always there, waiting, urgent, just beneath the noise. It's 1996. You have no smartphone, no group chat, and if you lose your friends, your only option is to ask the bartender if they've seen a girl in a butterfly clip. It's like trying to survive Jurassic Park with nothing but a beeper. You enter the bar with confidence. Your outfit's on point, your bangs have achieved the desired amount of vertical lift, and your friends are somewhere nearby, you think. But within 10 minutes, the music's too loud, the lighting is full chaos, and everyone you came with has vanished into the human fog. You check your pockets. No phone. Just a mint, a plastic comb, and a condom you definitely packed for optimism, not realism. Welcome to nightlife before the digital safety net. No texting where are you, no air tags, no location sharing. You can't drop a pin unless it's literal and holding your bangs together. If you get separated, your only option is to go on a bar-wide scavenger hunt, based entirely on memory, intuition, and vague verbal descriptions like, she's about this tall, curly hair, wearing silverish, maybe gray, something sparkly. You shout your friends' names, but the DJ has just cranked Sandstorm to full volume, and your voice dies in the wall of sound. You think you see someone familiar in the strobe lights, but it turns out to be a stranger wearing the exact same tiny backpack as your friend. You apologize. They shrug. You continue wandering, clutching your drink like it's your only known ally. If you do find a payphone, usually near the bathroom or by the weird corner with two malfunctioning arcade machines, it doesn't help. You don't know anyone's number. You might know your mom's landline, but she's not picking up at midnight, and even if she did, what's she going to do? Send a rescue helicopter to Club Cringe? The only piece of tech you might have is a pager. And let's be clear, pagers were not life-saving devices. They were basically glorified digital post-it notes. Someone could page you with a mime 11, which meant call me ASAP, or 143, which meant I love you, or, more realistically, 07734, which meant absolutely nothing but looked cool upside down. But again, no one could call you. You had to find a phone, remember their number, and hope they hadn't already left with someone named Derek. This was survival by memory, by instinct, by agreed-upon check-in points that never really worked. Let's all meet at the bar at 11:30 was code for let's never see each other again. If someone went to the bathroom and didn't return, you had to decide how long to wait before starting a low-key search party. After 20 minutes, it wasn't concern, it was a quest. And then, the eternal fear. Did they leave without me? That creeping dread that your ride bailed, your friends moved on to a house party without telling you. Or, worst of all, they left a note with a stranger who definitely forgot to deliver it. Your friend said they went to Mike's, or Mark's, something with an M, and they had tacos. The panic is real, and there's no solution. You can't even call a cab unless you have cash, and the number memorized, and the cab actually answers. There's no app to track your ride, no ETA. You just stand on the curb in a miniskirt, holding your shoes and hoping the next car isn't a haunted station wagon full of regrets. And yet you survived. Not gracefully, not efficiently, but you made it. You bumped into your friend by the coat rack, just as they were giving up and going home. You flagged down a cab that may or may not have been legit. You ate a 3 a.m. quesadilla while retelling your entire solo odyssey like a war veteran. Because in the 90s, technology didn't save you. You saved yourself with sheer determination, a little luck, and the ability to shout your best friend's name loud enough to cut through TLC and secondhand smoke. Good times, terrible system. But hey, at least your Nokia didn't die, because it didn't exist yet. Necessity is the mother of invention. You invent a complex drink-covering maneuver involving napkins, straws, and the power of suspicious eye contact. Was it effective? Not really. Did it make you feel like a spy? Absolutely. This was the golden age of improvised security measures. Before drink covers were mass-produced and marketed with catchy names like Sip Safe or Guard Gulp, you had napkins, hands, and raw anxiety. Everyone had their own ritual. Some hovered a flat, palm over their cup like they were blessing a potion. Others jammed the straw through the cocktail napkin and pinched the edges closed like a pastry. It didn't matter if it actually worked. It made you feel prepared. You weren't just out drinking. You were conducting an undercover mission. Every girl was a DIY secret agent. Every drink was a high-stakes experiment in surface tension and suspicion. You'd take a sip, place your napkin precisely back on top, and glare at anyone who even breathed near your glass. You had your don't mess with me face. You practiced it in the mirror. It had 3 settings: mild irritation, suspicious rage, and I will ruin your GPA. Then there were the signals, verbal and otherwise. Secret codes invented on the fly and known only to your friend group. Do you want a slice of pizza? Didn't mean pizza. It meant, this guy is sketchy and I need you to extract me from this conversation. The follow-up line, I'm actually more in the mood for sushi, meant, let's get out of here right now or I'm jumping out the bathroom window. Some groups had even more intricate systems. 1 tap on the shoulder, I'm fine, just checking in. 2 taps? Help me out of this. 3 taps? I've locked eyes with someone, and I need you to do a background check using only your intuition and his footwear. It was the kind of low-budget security network that Homeland Security dreams of, except it was being run by a group of 20-year-olds in crop tops, eyeliner, and the emotional stamina of a sleep-deprived lemur. Even drink placement became part of the system. Holding it with both hands, I'm good, engaged, and not leaving. One hand hovering near your chest. Please interrupt this interaction and tell me someone just hit our car. Drink on the ledge behind you? I forgot every rule I ever learned and am currently taking unnecessary risks. Please come slap sense into me. Bar staff got involved too, sometimes awkwardly. Some places had bowls of cocktail umbrellas you could use as makeshift shields. Others offered Ask for Angela programs, coded requests you could make at the bar to signal for help without alerting your creeper. It was a noble idea, mostly undermined by the fact that no one remembered the name Angela, and several well-meaning people accidentally asked for Ashley, Amanda, or Algie. Then came the gear. Some crafty genius began selling silicone cup covers with a slit for your straw and a helpful message printed on top like, "Not yours," or "Back off, Chad." They came in neon pink or glow-in-the-dark green and were impossible to clean, but you carried them anyway, stuffed next to your fake ID, a crumpled $5 bill, and a travel-sized deodorant you shared with 4 people. Eventually, these little tricks, napkin lids, fake texts, code words, became as routine as lip gloss and pre-game shots. You'd plan your outfit, pick your drink, and mentally rehearse your escape script. You weren't paranoid. You were prepared. You were part of a generation of partygoers forced to MacGyver their way to safety, using nothing but paper straws and intuition. Were the strategies perfect? No. Did they work every time? Absolutely not. But they gave you back a tiny sense of control. In a world that didn't give you many guarantees, they were better than nothing. And maybe that's the point. The magic wasn't in the napkin or the code word. It was in the system you created, with your friends. The tiny rituals of protection and solidarity. Even if the spycraft was questionable, the care was real. You had each other's backs, and if that meant inventing an entire language of winks and pizza metaphors, so be it. That was safety, 90s style, low-tech, high alert, and weirdly effective. It wasn't just women. Suddenly everyone is on high alert. Some guys are worried for their friends. Others are, let's be honest, just worried someone will steal their pitcher of cheap beer. But something shifts. The panic isn't gendered, it's ambient. A low buzz of nervous energy drifting through every bar, every party, every weird basement with black lights and inflatable furniture. Sure, the messaging focused on women, but guys weren't immune to the unease. For every watch your drink flyer in the women's bathroom, there was a guy at the bar squinting into his solo cup, wondering if it was supposed to taste like that, or if he just hated Jaeger. Some were genuinely scared. They'd heard the same rumors, seen the same after-school specials. They had sisters, girlfriends, roommates. They watched friends spiral after a weird night they couldn't remember. And they didn't know what to do because nobody had written them into the script. There were no posters for men that said, "Here's how to help," or "Here's how to stay safe, too." Just vague warnings, awkward silences, and a lot of bro-to-bro shoulder slaps masquerading as emotional support. Other guys responded with denial. "That stuff doesn't happen here," they'd say, while sipping from a communal jungle juice bucket that had definitely been touched by at least 8 strangers. It wasn't malicious, it was uncomfortable. Talking about it meant acknowledging danger, and acknowledging danger meant ruining the vibe. The holy grail of the 90s was chillness. Nothing ruined chillness faster than saying, "Hey, do you think that guy's acting weird with those drinks?" And then there were the performative protectors, the ones who suddenly appointed themselves unofficial bodyguards of their female friends. They meant well, but had the energy of a golden retriever who'd just read half a self-defense pamphlet. They'd say things like, "I got your back," and then immediately get distracted by beer pong. Or they'd demand to know every guy's full name, major, and intentions before allowing a conversation, and then wander off to flirt with someone while their friend was still mid-sentence. For queer men, things were even murkier. The mainstream conversation around drink safety rarely even acknowledged their existence. But the risks were just as real, sometimes worse. The fear of being drugged, assaulted, or targeted was wrapped in extra layers of silence and shame. So while frat boys were joking about not getting roofied, queer men were navigating real concerns with even fewer tools and far less public visibility. Some guys were scared because they genuinely didn't understand how easy it was to cross a line. What counts as consent? If we were both drinking, is it okay? These weren't hypothetical questions. They were whispered in dorm rooms and shouted in student union debates. A generation of men raised on beer ads, sitcoms, and vague health class presentations suddenly had to reckon with accountability. The rules were changing, slowly, confusingly, but changing. And sure, some guys were mostly scared someone would mess with their pitcher, or that they'd be blamed for something they didn't understand, or that going to the bathroom meant someone would take their bar stool. But even that was part of the shift. The illusion of carefree partying was cracking. There was a growing realization that no one was exempt, that danger, suspicion, and vulnerability didn't care what gender you were or how invincible you felt after 3 shots of Goldschlager. So yeah, guys got scared too. Some handled it well, some made it worse. But most were just trying to figure it out in real time, without a script, without clear guidance, and with the same foggy blend of uncertainty, pressure, and secondhand fear that defined the entire 90s bar scene. Because the truth is, none of this was simple. Not the fear, not the protection, not the roles we were all handed. Everyone was just trying to stay safe in a world that barely knew how to talk about what unsafe even meant. And if the only thing you managed to do that night was keep your drink in hand, your buddy in sight, and your empathy intact, well, that was already a small act of revolution. Especially for a guy in cargo shorts and frosted tips. Did you hear about the girl who woke up in a bathtub full of ice? What about the guy who accidentally roofied himself? The stories grow wilder with every retelling until nobody remembers what's real. Welcome to the campfire circle of college bars, the swirling mythology of the 90s party scene. These weren't just rumors. They were cautionary fables, passed from one roommate to another like ancient lore. A blend of half-truths, drunken misunderstandings, and moral panic that somehow became gospel, especially when told under the influence of peach schnapps and ambient fear. Let's start with the bathtub story. Everyone knew someone who swore it happened on their campus. A girl meets a guy. They hit it off. She blacks out. She wakes up the next morning in a sketchy motel bathtub filled with ice. There's a note on the mirror. Call Mime 11 now. Your kidney has been removed. It's the kind of tale that sticks in your brain like the lyrics to Semi-Charmed Life. Gruesome, cinematic, and 99 medically impossible. Here's the kicker. It never happened. Not once. No confirmed cases. Not even close. But that didn't stop it from being told with absolute conviction. My friend's cousin's RA said it happened to her roommate's sister, and just like that, it gains legitimacy. You'd find yourself second-guessing every slightly cool bathroom you entered. Then there was the guy who allegedly roofied himself. The story varied. Sometimes it was a fraternity prank gone wrong. Sometimes it was a guy trying to spike a girl's drink who got the cups mixed up. Either way, the punchline was always the same. He passed out before he could do anything and woke up with his eyebrows shaved and his friends writing dumb bass on his forehead in Sharpie. Justice, sure. Truth? Probably not. But satisfying? Absolutely. And who could forget the tale of the drink that changed colors? This one usually involved a girl sipping a Long Island iced tea, looking down to find it had turned blue. That means someone tried to roofie her, the storyteller whispers, eyes wide. Never mind that no drug worked that way, and that the drink probably changed colors because someone spilled a blue kamikaze next to it. Facts don't survive long in the wild. The thing is, these stories weren't just entertainment. They were warnings dressed in drama. They spread because they felt possible. The fear was real, even if the tales were fiction. And when you live in a world without definitive information, urban legends become the operating manual. They told you who to avoid, what not to drink, which bars were sketchy, and why you should never accept a drink from a guy who says, "Trust me, it's sweet, you'll love it." And of course, the longer the night went on, the more absurd the stories got. Someone always claimed they knew a girl who woke up halfway through her own wedding after being drugged at a bachelorette party. Or the guy who only drank bottled water all night and still blacked out, which clearly meant the bottle was laced by the bartender, the bouncer, or maybe a ghost. There were rumors of black market dealers selling roofies behind the jukebox. There were rumors of bartenders slipping stuff into drinks for fun. Nobody had proof, but everyone had a story. In the absence of facts, legends filled the void. They were comforting in their own weird way. They gave structure to the chaos. They gave people something to explain what happened, or what almost happened. They were armor made of exaggeration. And let's be honest, some of those stories were probably invented just to cover bad decisions. Sometimes it's easier to believe you were drugged than admit you took 5 tequila shots on an empty stomach. Sometimes you don't remember the night because your body gave out, not because someone else interfered. But the ambiguity stuck. And so the stories grew, because in the end, it didn't matter whether they were true. They felt true enough. And in the chaotic landscape of the 90s bar scene, that was all you really needed. A myth to hold on to, a punchline to repeat, and a reason to never leave your drink or your friends unattended. The blue light phones, the roaming safety ambassadors, the suspiciously clean campus vans, all are here to help. But when the bars close, you're on your own, armed only with the world's most complicated keychain. Let's set the scene. It's 1:52 a.m. You've just left a bar that smelled like sadness and cinnamon schnapps. Your feet hurt. Your brain is a soup of beer, regret, and half a mozzarella stick. You're gripping your plastic clutch like it contains state secrets, and somewhere in the distance, you can hear someone screaming the chorus to tub thumping. You are officially in the danger hour. But fear not, campus security is here, allegedly. Their presence begins and ends with a series of blue glowing poles scattered across campus like glowing candy canes of questionable utility. They look like sci-fi yard lights, Each one comes with a big red button labeled emergency, which, according to orientation, summons help, supposedly. Pressing it is supposed to send a signal to the Central Command Center, aka a guy named Phil, who is half asleep and watching a VHS of Walker, Texas Ranger, in a windowless basement. The only time anyone actually presses a blue light button, it's usually to test it, or because someone mistook it for a vending machine after 4 drinks. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a disembodied voice crackles from the speaker. This is campus security, state your emergency, but by then, you're already halfway down the path, holding your keys like Wolverine and practicing how to scream in a way that's both assertive and polite. Then there's the Safe Ride program. In theory, it's genius. You call a number and a van driven by a fellow student comes to pick you up and drive you home. In practice, it's like trying to summon a unicorn with a rotary phone. You call, and it's busy. You call again, and it rings 17 times before someone answers with the enthusiasm of a DMV printer. Yeah, warehoused until 3:30. It's 2:05. You hang up and contemplate walking home through a neighborhood that's somehow both overlit and pitch dark at the same time. Campus safety ambassadors are also out there, somewhere. You know they exist because you saw them once handing out reflective wristbands and tiny flashlights that worked for maybe 10 seconds. Their main job seems to be wandering around in windbreakers and smiling like substitute teachers. They're supposed to be approachable, helpful, comforting. But at night, they mostly resemble NPCs in a video game whose quest dialogue never loads. You'd think with all these systems, emergency poles, free rides, reflective vests, there'd be a sense of security. But there isn't. Because what nobody tells you is that at the end of the night, when the streets are quiet and the party buzz wears off, you're not counting on systems. You're counting on yourself and your friends, and maybe that weird keychain your aunt gave you that's part flashlight, part whistle, part pepper spray, and possibly also a thermometer. So you walk, briskly, keys between fingers, eyes scanning. Every rustle is a raccoon. Hopefully, every person approaching makes your pulse spike. You text your friends, but half of them are still inside. One is crying over an ex, and the rest forgot where they live. You think about calling campus security, but the idea of explaining where that one alley next to the Taco Bell dumpster is doesn't feel promising. And when you do finally make it back to your dorm or your off-campus apartment with the sticky door lock and a broken porch light, you feel like a hero. Not because campus security helped, but because you made it. The signs, the programs, the well-meaning brochures, they were all background noise. In the end, it's just you, your instincts, your questionable footwear, and that half-dead flashlight still clanking around in your bag. Because in the 90s, campus safety didn't protect you. It tried. Kind of. But mostly, you survived because you were clever, fast, or just lucky. And maybe because you refused to be the person who had to explain to the news that the blue light didn't work. After a night of worrying and not quite partying, you wake up to the kind of hangover that could only be cured by a greasy breakfast and 12 hours of sleep. Too bad you have a midterm in 40 minutes. You open your eyes and immediately regret everything. Your head feels like someone replaced your brain with a maraca full of dry spaghetti noodles. Your mouth is drier than a philosophy major at a kegger. Your pillow is suspiciously warm on one side and cold on the other. Neither helps. Somewhere in the distance, you hear someone yelling about Pop-Tarts and someone else violently microwaving what is either soup or revenge. The 90s hangover is a special brand of suffering, not just because of the cocktails, which were essentially sugar, ethanol, and regret, served in a solo cup, but because there were no apps to deliver you electrolytes, no TikToks explaining liver recovery stacks, and no modern hydration powders that taste like tropical wellness. You were on your own, just vibes, aspirin, and whatever questionable wisdom you picked up from your roommate's cousin's friend who once studied abroad in Amsterdam. The first line of defense? Grease. You need a breakfast burrito, or a Waffle House, or, if you're desperate, the one place on campus that serves hash browns, bacon, and existential despair before 9 a.m. You show up in pajama pants and sunglasses, holding your head like it's about to detach. You order 2 sides of sausage and a side of syrup, not because it makes sense, but because your body is running on instinct and salt. Then there's hydration. Water is the obvious choice, but it's not enough. You need a gas station Gatorade in a flavor that sounds more like a mood than a beverage. Fierce Glacier, Mystic Storm, Cool Blue. You'd chug 2 of them, then lie down and try to remember what your own name is. If you were especially prepared, you might have stashed Pedialyte in your mini fridge. It was designed for babies, sure, but in college it was secretly considered the holy grail of reanimation. 1 sip, and you could almost remember where your shoes were. 2 sips, and you could maybe stand upright. By the 3rd, you were texting your TA asking for an extension with a full sense of moral authority. Other people swore by carbs, just lots of them. Bagels the size of your face. Plain toast stacked like Jenga. Cold leftover pizza eaten with the same urgency as someone defusing a bomb. You'd chew slowly, not because you were savoring the flavor, but because chewing too fast might alert the nausea goblin lurking just below your sternum. And of course, there were the imagined cures. Urban legends of hangover salvation passed around like smudged recipes. Drink pickle juice. It replaces your electrolytes. Also replaces your dignity and probably your friends. Eat a raw egg. Rocky did it. Rocky also got punched in the head professionally. Maybe don't follow his diet. Hair of the dog. More alcohol. Great if you want to turn your 1-day hangover into a 3-day identity crisis. Smoke weed and watch cartoons. Not a cure, but definitely a temporary peace treaty with your body. You consider all your options. But you don't have time. The midterm starts in 23 minutes. You smell like vodka and fear. You grab the nearest hoodie, slide into your sneakers without untying them, and sprint to class with a coffee you won't drink and a granola bar you will absolutely lose in your backpack until finals week. The hangover isn't gone. It's just dormant, like a raccoon in a dumpster, waiting for the right moment to pounce. But for now, you're vertical, you're dressed, you're functioning at what scientists would describe as bare minimum human settings. And somehow, that counts as surviving. Because in the end, the only real hangover cure the 90s gave you was time, shame, and a breakfast sandwich that could double as a heating pad. You try to piece together what happened. Did you have fun? Did you lose your wallet? Is that stamp on your hand permanent? No one is quite sure. One thing's certain. You survived another night in the 90s bar scene. The morning light doesn't gently rise so much as slap you across the face. Your sheets are twisted around you like a constrictor snake. Your shoes are still on. Your earrings are off, but only one of them made it to the nightstand. You squint at the ceiling, trying to process the blurry slideshow in your brain. A bar, a bathroom, a guy named Trent? and then nothing. Your head feels like a VHS tape that's been left in the sun, warped and fuzzy, but still technically playing. You check your phone. Wait, no, you check your clock radio. Your phone is a chunky Nokia somewhere in your jeans from last night, and it's currently dead and coated in glitter. There's a voicemail from someone whose number you don't recognize, but they claim to have your jacket, your wallet, or possibly your dignity. Hard to tell. They were yelling over what sounds like a Shania Twain remix. You sit up slowly and do a mental checklist. Shoes? Still on, that's not good. Purse? Half unzipped, contains gum, a key you don't recognize, and 2 pennies. Memory? Scattered, like a Jenga tower in a wind tunnel. Dignity? Unclear. The hand stamp from the bar is still there. It says Thirsty Thursday in a font that looks like Comic Sans having a breakdown. You try to scrub it off, but it's made from the same substance as industrial printer ink and broken promises. It's going to be there until at least Monday. You glance around your dorm or apartment. It looks like a moderately successful heist occurred here. There's an empty cup on the floor. 1 slice of pizza in the fridge with a single bite taken out of it. Someone's scrunchie. You don't wear scrunchies. You try to retrace your steps. You remember the bar being loud. There was a guy with an eyebrow ring who may or may not have said something about Nietzsche. Your friend disappeared with someone in a backwards visor. There was dancing, or possibly falling. You vaguely recall someone shouting, "Do the Macarena," and that was probably you, again. Now comes the post-game analysis. You text your friends, or, if it's 1996, you wait until brunch to regroup and compare war stories over pancakes and endless refills of weak diner coffee. Everyone has a slightly different version of the night. In one, you sang karaoke. In another, you did not. In one, you danced on a table. In another, it was more of a stumble and a heroic recovery. Consensus is impossible. Reality has split into several competing timelines. You ask, "Did I look okay?" Your friend, "You looked amazing, like a sexy librarian who lost a bet." You, "Cool. Did I cry?" Your friend, "Define cry." You, "Oh no." Your friend, "But in a fun way." You accept this. The truth is, the morning after wasn't about solving the mystery. It was about emotional triage. Who needs water? Who's missing a shoe? Who needs a pep talk before calling the guy who maybe gave you his number, or maybe gave you his friend's number as a joke? But you survived. And in the 90s, that was kind of the only goal. Make it home, mostly intact. Wake up, mostly unscathed. Piece together a story that mostly makes sense. Sure, you might have questions. Why your hands smell like tequila and Sharpie. Why you have a receipt for 16 mozzarella sticks. Why your voice is gone. But the answers can wait. Because the 90s bar scene wasn't about perfect memories. It was about imperfect survival. You lived. You learned. You possibly got roofied. Possibly just overdid it on rum punch. Either way, you're here. Your eyeliner is smudged, your heart rate is stabilizing, and your hand stamp is still glowing like a battle scar. Congratulations, you did it. You made it through the night and into the myth. From Law and Order to late-night talk shows, everyone is suddenly an expert in roofies. MTV airs a special with alarming statistics and a soundtrack by Alanis Morissette. You watch with morbid curiosity, because that's what the 90s did best, turn trauma into programming. 1 minute you're watching a rerun of Friends, and the next, it's a made-for-TV movie where the cool party girl ends up in a hospital bed surrounded by concerned extras and a somber violin score. It was educational, technically, but delivered with the subtlety of a brick through a windshield. Law and Order, SVU, became the unofficial national curriculum on how crimes like drugging and sexual assault might work if everyone involved were very dramatic, extremely well lit, and always confessed after 42 minutes. The message was clear: drink tampering is real, and also, you should never trust anyone who offers you a cocktail while making too much eye contact. MTV got involved too. Back when it still played music videos, occasionally, it also dipped into the world of very special episodes. They aired PSAs in between TRL and Beavis and Butthead, featuring solemn celebrities leaning against brick walls, telling you to watch your drink, stay with your friends, and trust your instincts. Like your instincts weren't currently focused on whether or not your ex would be at the party tonight. They also ran documentaries with titles like True Life, I Was Drugged at a Party, with moody lighting and a voiceover that made everything sound like a serial killer was just off screen. The soundtrack? A lot of Alanis, some No Doubt, and whatever minor key Fiona Apple track best matched the slow zoom on a red Solo cup. Talk shows were even worse. Oprah, Ricky Lake, Montel Williams, you name it. There was always a segment titled something like Date Rape, What You Don't Know Could Hurt You, where an expert, usually someone with a vague title and intense glasses, would explain the mechanics of Rohypnol while the audience nodded solemnly and clutched their handbags. The camera would cut to a college-aged girl crying softly, while the Chiron read, I don't remember anything, but my life changed forever. And sure, it was important. It was. But it was also a media circus, because for every informative minute, there were 5 more drenched in fear-mongering and melodrama. It was hard to tell if you were supposed to be careful or if you should never leave the house again without a bodyguard and a forensic kit. Meanwhile, scripted TV shows started shoehorning roofie plots into everything. A character you knew and loved would go out for a fun night, and suddenly it was all dim lighting, distorted music, and shaky camera work. She'd wake up the next morning with no memory and a very important lesson. The morale wasn't always clear, but it usually involved never trusting strange men, fruity drinks, or dimly lit stairwells. Even Sabrina the Teenage Witch managed to work in a lesson about party safety, though, in fairness, her solution involved magic. You didn't have that luxury. Just a bottle of water, a bad hangover, and the hope that you remembered everything that happened. The weirdest part? Everyone was suddenly an expert. Your roommate quoted something she saw on Dateline. Your mom sent you a newspaper clipping with underlined sentences and a handwritten note. Be careful at those college bars. Your sociology professor briefly detoured from the syllabus to show a VHS tape about modern dangers to young women, which looked like it was filmed entirely in 1987. Pop culture wasn't just informing you, it was shaping how you thought about danger. You started to internalize the idea that any drink, any stranger, any moment of fun could pivot instantly into tragedy. It made you vigilant, sure, but it also made you exhausted. Because when TV is your guide to survival, everything starts to feel like a dramatized reenactment. And in the world of reruns, the danger never really ends. You just change the channel and hope the next show has a laugh track. It's the golden age of parental anxiety. Your mom has clipped 5 articles about drink spiking. Your dad wants you to carry a whistle the size of a brick. Every phone call home is a 3-act drama. This was the era before Find My iPhone, before Life 360, before group chats named things like Fam Squad. Parents didn't have real-time updates. They had imagination, and worse, the news. And in the 90s, the news was on a mission to convince every parent in America that their child was one flavored vodka away from waking up in a dumpster with amnesia. and no kidneys. The result? Pure, uncut panic, filtered through a landline. You'd get back to your dorm after a night out, your hair smelling like cigarettes and lip gloss, your jeans stained with something unidentifiable. And there would be messages, dozens of them. Your roommate says, your mom called, and then she called again, and then your dad called asking if your mom had gotten a hold of you yet. You call back, big mistake. Act I, interrogation. Where were you last night? Why didn't you answer your phone? Do you know what's happening on college campuses right now? Your mom's voice sounds like she's in the middle of a press conference. Your dad is in the background offering statistics he probably made up. I read in Time magazine that 1 in 3 drinks are spiked. That wasn't the statistic, but it felt real. Act 2. Emotional appeal. You know I don't sleep when I don't hear from you. Is it too much to ask for one simple call after the bar? There is no correct response. You say sorry, and your mom says, you don't sound sorry, and your dad sighs heavily, like he personally invented safe college nightlife, and you're out here ruining the legacy. Act 3. The solution phase. Your mom sends you an envelope filled with newspaper clippings and a pamphlet titled How to Party Safely Without Dying. Your dad goes full Batman and buys you every self-defense gadget sold on late-night TV, pepper spray, a personal alarm that sounds like an airstrike, and a novelty flashlight that doubles as a blunt force weapon. It weighs 3 pounds and makes your purse lean to one side like a suitcase full of bricks. You are now carrying a keychain that could take down a small bear. Meanwhile, your friend Jess is still using her lanyard as a belt. And the panic wasn't just limited to safety. Parents were suddenly deeply concerned about what you were drinking. Did you know there's a drug that has no taste? Your mom would say. They put it in cocktails, even in Long Island's, as if you were ordering a Long Island iced tea for the flavor. As if anyone ever needed to drug a drink that already contained half the periodic table. Some parents mailed you drink condoms, plastic drink covers that looked like leftover Tupperware lids. Others gave you the talk again, but now with a postmodern twist. If you ever feel unsafe, find a woman, or better yet, find a gay man. They're usually more trustworthy. Sure, great plan. Just hold up a flare and yell, "Do we have any trustworthy gay men in the bar tonight?" It was a confusing time. They meant well. They were scared. But their solutions often involved shipping you a stun gun and calling every Sunday night to ask if your RA had taught you how to disarm a predator using only eye contact and a firm voice. You'd roll your eyes. You'd groan. But deep down, part of you appreciated it. Because behind all that panic and unsolicited gear was love. Chaotic, sweaty-palmed, overly dramatic love. And if that meant explaining for the 100th time that no, you had not been roofied, you just danced too hard to groove is in the heart, then so be it. At least someone out there still thought you were worth saving. Even if their strategy included laminated pamphlets, hypothetical scenarios, and the world's loudest whistle. In a last-ditch effort, bars try to outsmart the panic. Color-changing cups, tamper-proof bottle caps, and a bartender who looks like he moonlights as a ninja. Nothing says relax like a drink that glows in the dark. By the late 90s, the bar scene had fully entered its tech bro meets overprotective mom phase. Gone were the days when serving drinks out of a Gatorade cooler was considered cutting edge. Now, every bar worth its liquor license was experimenting with new ways to show you they cared, or at least wanted to avoid a lawsuit. The first innovation? Color-changing cups. Not because they were festive, though they definitely looked like props from a Nickelodeon game show, but because they allegedly changed color when exposed to certain drugs. Was it true? The science was generous. In reality, they were more like mood rings with delusions of grandeur. You'd pour your drink, watch it swirl into an unsettling shade of purple, and wonder if that meant danger, or if someone had just ordered a blue Curacao nightmare 5 minutes ago. Then came the tamper-proof bottle caps, ingeniously designed seals that, once broken, could not be replaced. Bars loved them. Customers ignored them, mostly because they made opening a drink feel like trying to defuse a bomb with wet hands. You'd spend 3 minutes peeling, twisting, and wrestling the plastic, only to finally get it off and realize you forgot your straw. The bartender would sigh and toss you another. Safety was exhausting. Next up, bartenders trained in visual detection. These were the elite, professionals allegedly trained to spot drink tampering in real time. They had intense expressions, neck tattoos, and a gaze so sharp it could slice a lime. If someone even looked like they were hovering too long over a cup, these bartenders were on it. Or at least they were supposed to be. In practice, they were also managing 10 other things, making 6 flaming shots, handling a card machine from 1983, and trying to eject Chad for the 3rd time that night. Bars started installing drink surveillance zones, little sections of the counter where you could place your cup under the watchful eye of a security camera, because nothing makes a night out more relaxing than feeling like your daiquiri is being interrogated by the CIA. Occasionally, you'd look up and see a monitor with a live feed of you awkwardly dancing, mid-sip, in grainy black and white. It was less Big Brother and more local dad with a camcorder. And the cocktails themselves got weirder. Some bars started offering pre-sealed pouches of alcohol, like adult Capri Suns, with straws attached. Others served drinks with foil covers that required you to puncture the lid, like yogurt containers with a vodka problem. One bar even introduced a trust cocktail where the bartender would mix your drink in front of you, narrating every ingredient like a Food Network host having a breakdown. Now I'm adding exactly 1 ounce of rum, not 2. 1. You can watch. Even coasters got a glow-up. Some were fitted with chemical strips that claimed to detect foreign substances when a drop of your drink was applied. Most patrons forgot about them entirely, choosing instead to balance their drinks precariously on the edge of the table and hope for the best. Others used the coasters as makeshift frisbees. Accuracy of drug detection, 0. Entertainment value, priceless. But the crown jewel of safety theater, glow-in-the-dark cocktails. No, they didn't protect you, but they looked like they might. And in the world of 90s nightlife, looking safe was almost as good as being safe. You'd sip a neon green mystery drink under a black light and convince yourself that if anything were wrong, surely it would sparkle differently. Because in the end, these innovations weren't about effectiveness. They were about reassurance. Bars wanted to be seen trying. You wanted to believe they were trying. Everyone just wanted to have a good time without becoming a cautionary tale in a health class slideshow. So the drinks got smarter, or at least shinier. The bartenders got warier, and you still kept one eye on your cup, one hand on your straw, and your keys in your fist, because even in the era of smart cocktails, nothing beat good old-fashioned paranoia. Eventually, the panic cools, the posters peel away, and the new millennium arrives with more distractions. But the legend of the 90s roofie scare lives on in campus orientations, late-night conversations, and the collective memory of anyone who ever waited in line for a college bar bathroom. Like many cultural moments, it didn't end with a bang. It just fizzled. The media moved on. Campus newspapers found new crises to panic about. Y2K, tuition hikes, the rising threat of cargo pants as a legitimate fashion choice. And bars slowly stopped gluing warning flyers to every available surface. The emergency coasters disappeared. The glow-in-the-dark drinks stopped glowing. And nobody could remember what Ask for Angela was supposed to mean anymore. But the habit stuck. The anxiety remained like a background app you forgot to close, draining your battery in subtle ways. You still kept your hand over your drink without thinking. You still shot your friend that look if someone got too close in a crowded bar. The buddy system, once a formal agreement forged with drunken pinky promises, became second nature. You went out together. You left together. Or you texted every 10 minutes like a mother goose with separation anxiety. New generations showed up on campus with shiny phones, location sharing, and safety apps that sent alerts to 3 friends and a parent with a single tap. But the stories they heard, the ones you had lived, still shaped their choices. You'd hear a freshman say, "My orientation leader told us never to take an open drink," and you'd smile, half proud, half exhausted, because the trauma had been successfully passed down like a haunted family heirloom. And when someone joked about getting roofied, it didn't land the same way anymore. It wasn't funny. It was too close, too real. Even if it never happened to you, it happened to someone you knew, or someone they knew, or someone who vanished from your social circle and never really said why. The fear became part of the culture. It was in every bathroom check-in, every group chat that started with "text me when you get home," every drink you dumped the second you walked away from it. It shaped the way people dated, danced, drank, and it didn't go away. It just aged with you. You'd think adulthood would offer a sense of safety, and in some ways, it does. You're older, wiser, more likely to drink at wine bars with mood lighting and fewer sticky floors. But even now, at your cousin's wedding or a corporate holiday party, there's still that flicker of instinct. Don't set your drink down. Don't walk alone. Check in. And maybe that's the legacy. Not paranoia, not panic, just vigilance. Born out of a weird, wild, deeply messy decade where no one quite knew what was happening, but everyone felt it anyway. A time when information was fragmented, rumors moved faster than facts, and every girl with a butterfly clip and a fake ID became an amateur security expert overnight. You survived that era, with questionable choices, bad hangovers, and a healthy dose of luck. You learned to be careful, even when the world around you seemed anything but. And now, all these years later, you remember it not as a moment of fear, but as a chapter of absurd resilience. So yes, the 90s roofie panic faded, but it left behind a generation that still texts home safe at 1:47 a.m., a generation that still holds their drink close, not just because of what might happen, but because of what did. A generation that, when asked, "Do you want to go out tonight?" might still answer, "Only if we stick together." Because history doesn't always leave scars. Sometimes it just teaches you how to walk with your keys between your fingers, check your exits, and trust the girl fixing her mascara in the bathroom more than any posted flyer ever could. You stare into your closet, which is mostly just a pile on the floor. Tonight's outfit needs to do 3 things: look cool, hide your student ID, and somehow allow you to keep a hand over your drink at all times. Welcome to the tactical fashion era, where every crop top is paired with cargo pants full of emergency hair ties and a whistle you bought at the campus store. It's the late 90s, and fashion isn't just fashion anymore, it's field gear. Dressing for a night out isn't about expressing your individuality. It's about camouflage, strategic storage, and not freezing to death on the walk back from the bar. Let's start at the top. Crop tops were everywhere, tiny shimmery things that covered roughly 1/3 of your torso, made of fabrics that could burst into flames if exposed to friction. They came in glitter, mesh, iridescent alien skin, and the occasional inexplicable velour. They didn't hold anything, they didn't protect you from anything, but you looked amazing. Under that was usually a sports bra that doubled as armor, compression, containment, and a place to stash your ID if you weren't lucky enough to have pants with real pockets. And oh, the pants. The golden age of baggy jeans, parachute pants, and low-rise cargos, cut specifically to ensure your wallet would slide out when you sat down. But you didn't care. Those cargo pockets, they were life. Binmo. One leg, your keys, a backup scrunchie, 2 sticks of gum, and a $5 bill folded into eighths. In the other, lip gloss, travel-sized perfume, a miniature flashlight your mom insisted on, and a novelty whistle shaped like a dolphin that sounded like a dying tea kettle. You were a walking vending machine of anxious preparedness. Your shoes, platform sandals, because twisted ankles were apparently in. Or worse, blocky black boots that made every step sound like you were storming Normandy. Your feet would be destroyed by the end of the night, but at least you'd have a height advantage if someone tried anything sketchy. Bonus. They made a satisfying stomp if you needed to get someone's attention, or crush a bug, or send a clear message to Chad that no, you were not interested in a tour of his studio apartment. Accessories? Tactical. Your necklace was also a tiny mirror. Your bracelet had a hidden compartment for Advil or emergency glitter. Your bag, if you brought one, was a crossbody the size of a slice of toast that barely held your Nokia phone. But at least it left your hands free to guard your drink like a hawk. And don't forget the outer layer, that one going-out jacket that didn't match anything and somehow smelled like every bar on campus because it had been dragged through 1,000 Thursday nights. It was part armor, part signal flare. You left it on a bar stool, and someone would say, "Oh, that's Jess's jacket." Jess wasn't even there. The jacket had seniority. Then there was the hair strategy, half up, half down. Sleek enough for photos, secure enough for combat. You carried 5 extra hair ties on your wrist, like some sort of nervous rubber band soldier. You knew at least one would be used to secure someone else's hair while they threw up behind the bar, and another would end up lost to the void of a sticky booth cushion. The overall effect? A look that said, "I'm here to party, but I also have a backup exit plan and a granola bar in my cargo pocket in case this night goes sideways." Because in the 90s, you didn't just dress to impress. You dressed to survive. And maybe, if you were lucky, to get a blurry disposable camera photo that you'd find months later, tucked inside a binder of sociology notes and memories that still smelled faintly like cucumber body spray and caution. It was fashion. It was function. It was field-tested, friend-approved, and always paired with at least one friend whispering, "You sure you want to wear that? It doesn't have pockets. Money's tight, and so are the bouncers' shirts." Every dollar you spend is a strategic decision. Do you risk the mysterious $1 tequila shot, or splurge on the premium vodka that tastes suspiciously like mop water? You begin to suspect that the $5 cover charge is less about safety and more about funding the owner's new Jeep. Welcome to the economic battlefield of the 1990s college bar scene, where your student loan, money moonlights as drink tokens, and your financial planner is whichever friend still has a credit card with space on it. You're broke, but that doesn't stop you from going out. It just means you get creative with your budget, your beverage choices, and your entire sense of financial self-worth. Let's start with cover charges. That mythical $3 to $10 toll you pay just to get inside a bar that smells like regret and nachos. Supposedly, this money goes to pay the DJs, fund extra security, or replace broken furniture. Realistically, it funds the bar owner's weekly trips to Home Depot for string lights and new tiki torches. And yet, you pay it every time, like it's a tax for bad decisions. You grumble, hand over your cash, and step into a room that's already at capacity and humid with the breath of 200 people dancing to Mambo number 5. Then there are the drink specials. These are legendary, unpredictable, and always suspicious. $1 shots? Sounds like a steal until you realize they're made with a brand of alcohol that doesn't legally exist outside this zip code. The tequila burns going down, and then again, 20 minutes later when you try to remember your own name. But hey, at least it was cheap. If you had a little more to spend, you might risk a top-shelf cocktail. These were sold with all the confidence of a fine wine, but tasted like cough syrup filtered through a dish sponge. "This one's Grey Goose," the bartender says, sliding over a drink with a slice of lime that's already brown. You nod, sip, and immediately wonder if they siphoned it out of the cleaning supply closet. And still, you tip well. Because you know the bartender. Or at least you think you do. You're not sure if his name is Travis or Trevor, but he once gave you a free lemon drop, and now he's basically family. You tip $1 per drink like a decent person, and then another buck just to guarantee he doesn't forget your face in the flood of other patrons shouting, "Can I get a water with no ice but also vodka?" Bar economics also meant knowing what time to arrive. Early entry meant no cover and better drink deals, but also an empty dance floor and awkward small talk under full lighting. Arrive too late, and you're paying twice as much to stand in a line that stretches past the dumpster, while Chad tries to argue with the bouncer about how cargo shorts are technically business casual. And let's not forget the ATM situation. Every college bar had one. A dusty little machine in the corner that charged $3.50 per transaction, smelled faintly of nacho cheese, and only worked 60% of the time. You'd use it anyway because you needed cash for tipping, jukebox songs, or that mysterious moment when everyone collectively decides to go in on a 40-piece chicken nugget run. The truth is, every decision felt high stakes. You were calculating ounces per dollar like an economist, rationing your singles like a gambler on a hot streak. Some people tracked calories. You tracked ROI on schnapps. And yet, even in all this madness, you rarely spent more than $25 on a night out. It felt like a win. You got in. You danced. You drank something neon. And you even made it home with a crumpled dollar bill and a receipt that just said alcohol. That's 1990s nightlife economics. Half survival, half denial, all vibes. If you listen closely, you can hear a faint thumping. Part 90s club beat. Part the sound of your dignity leaving your body. The DJ plays the same 6 songs on repeat, pausing only to shout out someone's 21st birthday. Every time you hit the dance floor, you navigate spilled beer, lost earrings, and at least one couple fighting about who left the drinks unattended. Welcome to the emotional and physical minefield known as the dance floor, a place where you express yourself through interpretive limb flailing and also quietly panic about where your cup is. It smells like spilled vodka, dry shampoo, and Axe body spray. The floor is sticky, so sticky. It's unclear if the stickiness is soda, beer, or the tears of someone who just heard Torn by Natalie Imbruglia and had a moment. The soundtrack of the 90s nightlife was its own character. Every bar, every night, every DJ booth, no matter how small or makeshift, was powered by the same rotation of 5 CDs and a dream. You'd hear "This Is How We Do It" 3 times before midnight. Barbie Girl would make a surprise appearance around 12:20 a.m., followed by No Scrubs, which everyone sang in full, whether or not they knew all the words. If the DJ was feeling bold, he'd drop Smack My B Up or Blue, Da Ba Dee, to test the stamina of the crowd. If things got too rowdy, he'd calm it down with something from TLC or Savage Garden. There was no fade out, no mixing, just abrupt stops and starts like someone flipping through radio stations in a panic. Transitions were for amateurs. Volume control, optional. Every time Livin' La Vida Loca came on, someone lost their mind. People jumped, screamed, spun around like wind-up toys. It didn't matter that the lyrics were nonsense and the rhythm was borderline dangerous. It was the law to dance to Ricky Martin. And if it was someone's birthday, the DJ made sure you knew. There would be an air horn, possibly 2. He'd shout over the intro of Baby Got Back like a wrestling announcer. Shout out to Tiffany. Turning 21 tonight. She came here to party. Everyone cheered. Tiffany cried. A guy named Kyle handed her a mystery shot that glowed under blacklight. The cycle continued. But the real thrill of the dance floor wasn't the music. It was what might happen when you stopped moving. You'd be mid-booty shake when a wave of paranoia hit. Where's my drink? You scan the crowd, heart racing. Is it still at the booth? Did someone touch it? Is this how it ends? You rush over, find it, untouched, exhale, and return to the beat, now dancing with your cup in hand like a paranoid flamingo. Dancing in the 90s wasn't graceful. It was defensive. You had to hold your purse, guard your drink, and dodge people doing the Macarena with far too much elbow. At least one person nearby would be crying. Another would be aggressively grinding to My Heart Will Go On. Someone else would lose a shoe and never go back for it. You just accepted it. Casualties happened. Somehow, despite the chaos, the floor became a sanctuary. A glowing beer-slicked island of catharsis. For 3 minutes at a time, you were free, screaming the lyrics to Wannabe with your friends, jumping in unison during Jump Around, attempting to moonwalk and failing spectacularly. You weren't just dancing, you were forgetting. Forgetting the exams, the news, the 24-hour fear cycle that followed you everywhere. For one song, maybe 2, you were just there. And when closing time hit, you knew it was over. The lights came up, your eyeliner was halfway down your face, and the floor looked even stickier under fluorescent truth. But it didn't matter, because for a moment the soundtrack was yours. And if your dignity didn't make it home with you, at least you danced hard enough to earn the hangover. So here you are, drifting off at last, far away from the sticky-floored chaos of 1990s college bars and their epic battles against invisible enemies. Tonight you survived the blaring Spice Girls remixes, the terror of unguarded beverages, and the haunting specter of Chad with his 5th puka shell necklace. You navigated a world where every poster in the bathroom warned you to trust no one, except, maybe, the random girl fixing her mascara and giving out life advice by the paper towel dispenser. Looking back, it's tempting to laugh at the panic, the rumors, the over-the-top warnings, the keychains that weighed more than your actual textbooks. But behind every joke was a real undercurrent of anxiety, of young people just trying to stay safe, while also pretending to enjoy a sex on the beach poured from a suspiciously sticky bottle. Maybe the danger wasn't always as dramatic as the headlines, but the fear was real, and the lesson stuck. If not for life, then at least long enough to text your friends when you finally made it home. So tonight, as you slip under your clean sheets, no bouncer, no bathroom line, no glow-in-the-dark cocktail, maybe send a quiet thank you to your past self. The you who learned, the hard way, that nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m., that friends are your best protection, and that sometimes paranoia is just another form of looking out for each other. Be grateful for the group chats, the rideshare apps, and the fact that your biggest worry now is whether you remember to switch off the kitchen light. Because if history proves anything, it's that people are resilient, hopeful, and just a little ridiculous, even when the soundtrack is all boy bands and warnings in Comic Sans. Sleep easy, knowing you've survived one more weird, wild chapter of the past, and that no matter how absurd things get, you'll always have a story to tell. Good night.